Hello, 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 everybody. Give me a moment, please, while I get my screen together. For those of you guys that are new to me, my name is Aaliyah Mims, and I am doing a simultaneous cast from my Facebook Live page as well as Periscope. So here we go. This is going to be deeply personal for me. I usually do scopes and do Facebook Live messages about my work as a life coach, about motivating women to be their personal best. I often tell my stories through that and use that as motivation for you all so that you can learn some life lessons. And I want everybody to be great, and I want women to be great especially. So today is going to be a little bit different for me. And I just hope you guys bear with me. As with the rest of the world, we saw Beyonce's Lemonade last night, and she truly gave a new meaning to World Stop. I was in my feelings all last night, and it's taken me some time to really process not only what message was she sending and what did it mean, but also my relationship to it as a woman, my relationship to it as a Black woman, and my relationship to it as a Black American woman. And there were just so many things and feelings that came up to it. And so today, when I decided that I really wanted to do a video about it, I walked this line between how do I share my story in a way that honors my profession, both as a life coach and as an educator, and how do I show up professionally and versus showing up as the homegirl sometimes that I do. And what does it mean to be both in the same? And it really just made me start to think about, how the Lemonade videos or movie or montage or however you want to call it, really spoke to that duality that many of us possess, that we are neither just mother or just entertainer or just woman or just professional or just private, that truly all of those things intersect for us, and it's okay for us to show up as all of that. So that was just one big message for me, and the value of authenticity. We saw Beyonce at her most vulnerable. Of course, there are people that are saying, oh, this is just part of the media hype, or, oh, is this really what's going on? Is she just trying to create money? But I think that what she did for us was to show up as a whole person and to give us as women permission to be whole people, especially as Black women. We have this tendency to want to be polite, and this tendency to want to be seen as nice so that we can be accepted. We think that if we are more prim and proper and perfectly coiffed and looking like Michelle Obama or Claire Huxtable, then somehow that's going to make us less susceptible to being victimized. We're going to be taken more seriously. We are going to have the doors open that we deserve. But the reality is that it doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your level of education. It doesn't matter all of those things, because people are still going to interact with you from their own positions of power, from their own positions of truth, from their own issues. And while it's nice to be those things, it's okay for us to acknowledge that we are more than that, and that we have a complexity of feelings and thoughts in relationship to ourselves and to the world. And so just even for me deciding to come onto this scope and speak to that really was a place for me to tell my truth and for me to honor that there are times where in my day job that I don't want to say put on the pedestal, but that I'm expected to have a certain level of decorum. And there are times that I want to be Angela Bassett and Waiting to Excel and rolling through the streets and just setting shit on fire. I mean, that's real. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we think that we can only be one way, because the reality is life is more complex, and so many other folks have that right and that ability to be complex, and I think that we should as well. So that's my first point. And I'm looking to see, do I have any folks in the chat room, in the chats, in the comments? The next part, and the part that everybody's talking about, is how, I still have my sunglasses on, is, did Jay cheat? Is he this? Is he that? Is Beyonce this or that? And what it really made me realize is that love is truly, truly complex. There is no either or. There is no right or wrong. There's no sinner or saint. In reality, we possess that entire spectrum. And I think that as women, and especially as Black women, again, and that's the experience that I'm speaking from, we do ourselves another disservice when we think that life is either or. Because when we think that life is either or, especially when it comes to love, we have that idea that if he cheated on me or she cheated on me, I would never be back with them. I can't believe this, that, and the other thing. But the reality is we're complex. And when we don't give ourselves permission, especially in our loving relationships, permission to be complex, we paint ourselves into a corner. We paint ourselves into a corner because we expect people to be perfect when we are imperfect. We also paint ourselves into a corner because we start to feel alone in our feelings. We wonder, should I stay in this relationship even if it's not perfect, or even if the person is unfaithful, if this person has these major character flaws, do I stay? And what I found, and I would say even for myself when I was going through my divorce, is that there becomes a certain level of shame when we don't give ourselves permission to embrace the full spectrum of love. We feel ashamed at our thoughts, and we feel ashamed at accepting certain things in a relationship, and we feel ashamed with wanting to give it a try or wanting to explore and see this out because we're told that this is the right thing to do and this is the good thing to do. And truthfully, and I'm not quite ready to tell my whole story. You guys know parts of my story about my divorce and reconciliation with my partner. But the truth is, I've been both Beyonce and I've been Jay-Z in this relationship. And so I can speak honestly that there is no good guy. There is no bad guy, that we possess both parts of it. And I think the other danger in seeing love as this either or, either you do X, Y, Z, or you do something else, is that it makes the enemy out of the person that you're supposed to love. When they don't measure up, and they will not measure up, you start to see them as your enemy. And when you start to see your lover as your enemy, then the possibility of anything better and anything more than that goes out of the window. And we see this not only with our loving relationships, we see this in the world today where we have forgotten how to see each other's humanity. We get really caught up on political parties. We get really caught up on titles and status. We get really caught up on who's deserving and who's not deserving, who's the victim and who's the victor. And when we do that, we lose sight of the humanity in each other. And when we lose the sight in humanity and we draw these lines, all of those lines are creating a prison. I see this when I think about when I first moved to the South from New York, and everybody thought I was crazy, myself included. And there was a lot of talk around, how could you live in Texas? Texas is so racist. Texas is so homophobic. Texas is so traditional. And I definitely had a lot of reservations when I first moved here back in 2007. And one of my biggest reservations is, at one point I was working at a school where the staff was all Black. And even though I am a Black woman, that was my first time working in an environment where the majority of my peers were Black. And I will absolutely say from the beginning that I was the other. Not in the negative way, but more in a, we're not quite sure how to make sense of this person. This is someone who is a lesbian. This is someone who is a lesbian but not closeted, who is out and married to her wife. This is someone who is not an atheist, doesn't have any religious label, and doesn't have a membership to a certain church. She's not part of a sorority. She didn't go to an HBCU. I didn't fit the mold of what it meant to be a Black woman. And definitely at that time in 2007 in Dallas, my hair was natural. And I remember the first time I met my staff and how, at least the way I remember it in my mind, we were sitting at this picnic table or this cafeteria table at some event. And I remember myself distinctly being at one end and everyone else being at the other end. And I felt all kinds of fear and wondering about how I would be accepted. Fast forward 9 months and I walk into a staff meeting and it's a surprise baby shower for me. Why is that a big deal? I was not the gestational carrier for our daughter. So the fact that these people who on the outside and on the surface had all of these labels that we would be so quick to label as other, as not accepting, as whatever, embraced me and embraced me fully as a mother, as a parent to be. And it didn't matter. All of those things that I had built up in my head about being the other truly didn't matter, because people had conversations with me and I had conversations back with them, and we started to see each other's humanity and we embraced that, and we were able to fully be comfortable in who we were as individuals, whether we were individuals as Christian and traditional and heterosexual, or whether we were religiously fluid and a lesbian and coming from the Northeast and California, that we didn't have to compromise who we were in order to accept the other. And I really do believe that love is our guiding force. And this election period has made me really sick because of that, because I see on both sides how we have forgotten what it means to embrace each other's humanity. Have we forgotten, or do we even know? Do we know how to look at someone who is the enemy and see that they are a human being? They may be flawed just the way that we are flawed. They may have conflicting views and opinions. Even if their views and opinions are dangerous, but how do we love them, and how do we have compassion, and how do we reach out to that place in them and build bridges instead of creating lines in the sand? And I think what we see is the effect of us creating lines in the sand. And it starts in our relationships. It starts in our relationships with ourselves. It starts in our relationships with our own agency and our own power and our own identity. And then how we have those same misconceptions in our loving relationships, and then in our professional relationships and our political relationships. And so that complexity of love really spoke deeply to me last night. And I had to go to bed in my feelings, because I've been a sinner. I have been. And there are times that I might have thought I was a saint. And that was so powerful for me to see the juxtaposition of both. And then also for Beyonce to give space to the redeeming quality of love, that someone doesn't have to be nailed to the cross because they're not perfect. And that brings me to my third point about sex and sensuality and being an activist. I saw this. I don't even remember who said it, but someone made a comment that they were more able to embrace Lemonade than they were able to embrace her self-titled album, because she wasn't just showing up with sex in her body trying to sell. And what I challenge that person to believe, and this is someone who I love and respect dearly, so there's no love lost around it. She's one of the people that I did not cut off today. And trust me, I went through Facebook today just deleting people, just because I need to maintain a certain level of energy around me. And I know that it's hard for me to see someone else's humanity when they have opinions that sometimes are just so nasty and negative, that I need to create some space and distance and love them from afar. And so please do not get me wrong. I'm not saying invite this person that's spitting all this vitriolic nastiness into your home. Excuse me, but you can make space for them in their heart. So anyway, about the comment about the sex and sensuality, and this one is more, this album is more whole, is I asked the question, why does it have to be either or? Why can't she be a woman who's fully in control of her body, and she makes the decisions for herself, by herself, of how she wants to show up? So if she wants to parade down wherever in a leotard because that's how she's comfortable and that's how she shows up, more power to her. And I think that we, again, going back to my first point, have policed our bodies to the point that we think that if we cover up a certain way, or dress modestly a certain way, or wear our skirts to our knees, or do all of these things, that that's somehow going to elevate our status in society, and that's somehow going to save us from X, Y, or Z. But the reality is, even when we talk about the most horrific assault on our bodies, rape doesn't matter what you wear. Rape doesn't matter your age. Rape doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. Assault happens. And I think that we create emotional assault when we police others' bodies, and we make a decision about who is more deserving and who's more worthy based on their appearance and how they choose to show up in the world. And we somehow think that you can't be both that and an activist, that you can't be an entertainer and speak truth, that you have to choose, that you have to create these lines. And I think that one of the most powerful things that we can do as Black women in America, is again embrace the full spectrum of who we are and display that and be proud of it and know that we are not put in a box. That is really an old slave mentality of thinking that we have to show up a certain way to be acceptable and prim and proper. And here's my second to last point about religion. Oh my God. If you have not seen Lemonade, or you've only heard about it, or whatever, I strongly suggest you watch it. It was giving me Daughters of the Dust, Angel Heart, all kinds of Afro-spiritual being and place and presence that was just so beautiful and so raw. And all of the Catholic imagery. And if you guys are not familiar with the way that Africans in America have used religion as both how it's been both offense and it's been part of our enslavement, but at the same part how we used it as part of our liberation, I strongly suggest you research Yoruba, research Vodun, research Santeria, research Candomblé. You need to learn all of that to really fully embrace what Beyonce was doing when she showed all of the imagery of the water and Yemaya and the Orishas, and just really understanding how what she was showing up as is not, I did see somebody say, oh, she needs to read a Bible, she needs to do this. And I'm like, you completely missed the point, you simplistic soul. That's not the word I used. But the whole point of religion with both enslaved and free Africans was the idea that we embraced it all. We embraced it all in the sense that we had, for the most part, this Christian front, because one, that was either our place for safety and we needed to present a certain way in order to be safe. And also, you know, Christianity existed on the African planet before slavery. So that's one of those things that I really hate when people say, oh, the white man made us be Christian. Absolutely. Was it used as a form of enslavement, mental and psychological? Yes, but it also existed in other forms. So I don't want you to believe the hype that, you know, Jesus did not travel to Ethiopia. I may have that part wrong, so don't quote me. I'm not a historian, and all of that, but you can read on your own. And that's why you don't take Facebook or Periscope as gospel truth, and you do your own homework. And that's what I encourage you to do. But part of what enslaved people did, are people who were even free during those times, is that they hid the Yoruba and hid our African religion and African spirituality under the face of Christianity and Catholicism specifically under that. And so to see her play with all of those images again helped me to just really embrace the complexity of who we are. And if you are have been with me for a while, you know that my religion and my spirituality is always evolving, in the sense that, and I'll do a whole nother scope on that another time, just my story with God and my story with religion, and how it's been both a beautiful and freeing thing, and how much I've learned about myself. But seeing Beyonce show up as a Black woman, goddess, queen, mother, everything, just, I think that was probably the places where I teared up, in all honesty. I teared up because that's bold. It's bold in this society to dare be other, as a Black woman, as a religious woman, and to not be mainstream, or to show that maybe this one particular way of thinking about God and religion is not yours, is really bold. And I say that because that idea of that white male dominated religion permeates African American communities in ways that, again, is a whole other video. So to see her embrace her goddess was just so affirming. It was, I can't even put it into words, and I'm not usually speechless, but I'm speechless with this. And it just reminded me of my own evolution of thought. And at the end of the day, I know my relationship is with God, and I don't have to explain it. to anyone. I don't have to justify it. I don't have to codify it. I don't have to put it in this structured place. And it's a place that gives me peace and beauty. So that was really awesome. And then my last point that I want to talk about is how Lemonade has been a sense of community for me. I think today, this morning, one of my business friends and blogger friends, Lisa, started this group on Facebook for an opportunity and a place for us to just really dissect what this movement has meant for us. And the most beautiful thing is happening in there. What started off is, hey, explain this line, or what did you guys get from this image, really became a place for Black women to collectively be with each other, to be diverse, and to be ourselves, to be sisters, to be goddesses together, to lift each other up, to commune, to confess, and to just truly be in a society that pits us against each other way too often. To do that and to truly have fellowship with each other is just like breathtaking for me. To have a place where we can be vulnerable, to have a place where we can participate with each other is just so awesome. I think that when I say that a society that pits ourselves against each other, sometimes we pit ourselves against each other and we don't even realize how, even as Black women, we replicate patriarchy. I had to delete someone off my Facebook wall this morning because she made a comment about, so the whole point of this is, for all her money and her beauty, she still can't figure out how to keep a man, even an ugly ass man like Jay. And I'm just like, really? That's what you walk away from this? And not only that's so simplistic in thinking about the video, it's so simplistic in thinking that it's a woman's job to keep a man with her beauty. And if he is unfaithful, then it's somehow her fault. And in reality, my biggest struggles, not my biggest, some of my biggest struggles with patriarchy have been from other women. And in particular, more masculine identified Black lesbian women have pushed their version of misogyny on me so strongly that it's truly, I don't want to say it's scary because I'm not afraid, but it's so sad. It's so sad how we use this idea, how misogyny hurts everybody. It hurts women in obvious ways. It hurts lesbians in obvious ways. It hurts men in a lot of ways that we don't realize how much misogyny hurts men as well. And so to be in a space where we can check our patriarchy at the door has been so moving for me. I'm going to come to the end of this video, so I'm assuming I still see people here. I don't see any comments, and that's fine if you are on either Facebook Live or on Periscope, and I will definitely come back through and check your comments and reply. If I don't get you here, I definitely welcome you to come to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Aaliyah Mims, and the spelling is in either one of those places. But just as a recap, so what do you walk away from this video? What do you walk away learning or doing, or what's your call to action? And I'm not going to pitch anything to you, but I have 3, 6, 7 points I want you to file away in your mental Rolodex, to write down, to consider. 1, keep evolving. Who you are as a 19-year-old person, who you are as a 25-year-old, who you are as a 35-year-old, who you are when you're 55 is always changing, and it's always evolving, and it's okay. Do not put yourself in a box so early on that when change comes and it's inevitable, that you feel afraid and you resist it. You miss out on life's beauty, and you miss out on what God is truly calling you to be when you don't give yourself permission to evolve. And I think Lemonade is an example of how Beyonce has obviously evolved in our public eye, but also how you can evolve and how you have permission to evolve. The second thing is give yourself permission to be whole. In sometimes our desire to be accepted and desire to be worthy, we put ourselves in a box that negates all the pieces of us. We put ourselves in a box of being a good mom, and we are afraid of saying sometimes that our careers are just as important to us. We put ourselves in a box of being respectable and we don't allow our sexual sides to be revealed or to give place to that. So give yourself permission to be whole. Other people are allowed to be whole, and that means that you are too. The third thing I want you to walk away with is consider whether you're coming from a place, especially when you find yourself in disagreement or discord. Are you coming from a place of love? Or are you coming from a place of ego? For me, love is freeing. Love sees the humanity in the other. Love is expansive. Ego wants to be right. Ego wants to create an either or. Ego wants to limit and to prescribe. Think about which one you're coming from. The fourth one, lines in prison. Celebrate our complexity, because when you don't, not only are you not allowing other people to be human, but you're putting them in a prison, and you're just doing nothing but putting up that gate. And gates can kill you too, just as you're trying to block out the other things. Celebrate our complexities. The fifth quick point, forgive. Be angry, and you can still forgive. Again, I hate the narrative around so many of us are so quick to jump to the forgiveness piece, and really forgive is about ignoring so that we can not feel the discomfort that comes with seeing people in their fullness. But forgiving means allowing them their place to be human, and it's okay to be angry at the same time. It's okay to wreck shit with a baseball bat as long as it's your own stuff. It's okay to feel our full range of emotions, knowing that forgiveness will show up. And forgiveness doesn't always mean forgive and let back in your bed, but forgiveness means that you release that desire for the other person to pay the consequences. You release that desire to be right. You release that desire to control their journey. You wish them well. You truly and sincerely wish them well. You wish them love. You wish them growth, and you wish them peace. And you either send them on their way, or you find a way to build with them. But it's okay to not jump to there as well. The sixth thing is revel in your beauty, your dopeness, your goddess status. Love all of that. Be proud of it. Show it off. And just be the queen that you are. And last but not least, and definitely not least, if you hear nothing else, I want you to trust your heart. Trust that you're in the place that you're supposed to be. Trust your feelings. Be okay with them. And trust that it's all working together and it's going to be good. So those are my thoughts and my personal connection to Lemonade. I welcome your reflections, or I also welcome your thoughts about anything I said. You can always find me on either of the platforms that you're viewing me, or you can also find me on my website, www.aaliyahmims.com, and social media, most places as Aaliyah Mims, except for Twitter, which is the same one here as Periscope. Thank you, everybody, and I can't wait to talk to you guys next time.